Hey folks, this is Doc from Popcast Yo-Yos, a crowd-sponsored yo-yo show. Oftentimes I do trick tutorials and reviews, but I like to do interviews with interesting people in the yo-yo space. So I was really stoked to get Nate, aka Line G Ninja, to come onto the show and talk about a cool program he's working with kids and yo-yos. Nate, how's it going?
Going well.
Word up. So, can you tell me what is it that you do? What is your job with these kids?
All right, so I guess I am a mental health therapist, or also known as like a counselor. Was it? And pretty much I work with these kids on pretty much being able to manage their mood and their emotions alongside with their behaviors better. So a lot of times they might be acting up at school, or maybe having some issues with their own situations in life, and so they might have some mood issues. And so I work with them on either being able to cope with those problems, or being able to also kind of adapt their behaviors so that they can kind of get along in school or something like that.
I think you were telling me that a lot of the kind of common issues that you're working with kids is kids who have anger problems or control problems, kind of specifically around food, impulse control, I think. Does that sound right?
Yes. Well, a lot of times it varies, but I work with mostly boys, and so a lot of times I guess boys act out their problematic emotions with like anger and stuff like that. And so I do see a lot of anger. The eating stuff I don't see as much, but that one does come up time to time. And a lot of times it's just trying to work with them on changing a behavior that's not so healthy for them, and using one that is healthy.
Word up. And that's why you're on the show, is to talk about yo-yos and these kids. Now, why don't you tell us how yo-yos can help kids out and what you're doing in that space?
Basically, yo-yoing? I see it as a very healthy activity. It's a very healthy hobby. And so, what is it? One of the easiest ways to get or argue that a kid is probably better off with a yo-yo a lot of times is a lot of parents out there see their kids as being on electronics too much, for instance, like being on their tablets, being on their phones and stuff like that. And so you'll see a lot of times parents are just happy to see their kid playing with a yo-yo instead of being on an electronic. And additionally is that, pretty much, I don't know, there's so many different nuances that come out of being able to, take on the skill of being able to do well with a yo-yo. That, I don't know, it's one of those things where I'm just getting flooded with ideas of different ways. It's like you can help out with, self-confidence, for instance. If you're someone that's kind of down about yourself and doesn't really feel like you can do anything, is you can pick up a yo-yo and pretty much work towards a goal of being able to do your first trick and stuff like that. And then even, I think, beyond that too, is like, for instance, you were saying about the eating disorders and stuff like that. So if, for instance, your impulse is whenever you're getting a bit anxious, or if you're getting a bit upset about something, is to eat, you can instead kind of replace that behavior with going and picking up a yo-yo and throwing that and doing that instead. And even then is like, with the anger control stuff, is a lot of times, if you're upset about something, you could go pick up a yo-yo to kind of throw, to kind of release your anger. But you could also kind of like say that, throwing a yo-yo and learning how to get better with tricks is almost kind of like learning how to get good with controlling your anger, because you're going to get upset along the way of like trying to figure out your tricks and stuff like that too, right? So there's a lot of different stuff. It's kind of one of those things where I think there's certain things that I like to push on kids, because I think that there's just so many different positives that come out of it, I guess. So it's really interesting.
So
no, that's okay.
At first, when you were kind of telling me about this, I was definitely thinking a lot more about substituting one behavior from another, and kind of like that, like Hans, also known as Johans, the founder of not Playmax, the other one, Yo-Yo. Anyway, Hans Fenton Nelson, who Yo-Yo Factory.
Honestly, I have his playing card. I know that. I know who you're talking about.
Yo-Yo Factory.
Yes.
His dad Tom wanted to quit smoking, and picked up yo-yoing as a way to quit smoking. And Hans was looking for a new hobby, I guess. And so he and his dad started yo-yoing at the same time. His dad started to quit smoking, and his son, started just to kind of support his dad. And now, Hans has this big career. So that's kind of the first thing that came to mind. But I think what you're mentioning is a lot more interesting. It's not necessarily this like Pavlovian kind of thing. It's maybe just about some of these kids need more attention. They need confidence. They need something to focus on, but not necessarily like instead of every time I get mad I'm going to yo-yo. It's not necessarily that. It's just that this is one of many ways, one interesting thing that can give them something to focus on, something to build confidence on, something to bond with other people about. I think that's kind of what I'm getting. It's a lot simpler than
kind of to even add to more to just the other stuff that I guess that comes out of yo-yoing too is that a lot of times they say that just movement in general is healthy for you. Like it's better than sitting down, obviously. And what I find myself doing whenever I have a yo-yo is I a lot of times go out in the public. So socialization is also a positive thing that comes out of it is people come up to me and give me comments and I've met a few people that like I've never would have met normally just by going out and they're like, hey, that's kind of cool what you're doing. What is it? And I think that it even goes beyond that too with like the competitive scene and stuff like that is you kind of like find this belonging and stuff like that to like a family of people that are also into your kind of like skill and trade and stuff like that too.
So, I don't know if the kids you're working with are, diagnosed with anything specific. I have a mental health disorder that causes anxiety. I actually find that you say you enjoy meeting people. For me, being out in public sometimes can trigger really high anxiety, but sometimes you have to be. Like my job requires me to be at these things and interviewing strangers. And yo-yoing for me has been a good way for me to, if I can't literally get outside of the environment and escape, it's a way for me to be in a corner or against the wall, surrounded by people, but just able to just kind of yo-yo and do something. I guess it's the muscle memory, and it's a good way for me to calm down. It's not as good as my clonazepam or whatever my medicine, but it's I wonder sometimes which came first for me, like the need to find something to deal with anxiety, or this yo-yoing was there and it was fun, and then also but either way, for me it's been super cool and confidence builder. Before I was doing yo-yoing, I was just Dr. Awkward, and now with yo-yoing, Dr. Popular.
It's awesome that you said that, because I get that sort of thing too, and what is normally I'm a very shy standoff person normally too, and so it is something where it kind of, like I was saying before, it pushes my boundaries on being able to like, hey, look, like I'm going to do this thing out in public that's probably going to get some attention and stuff like that. And they might walk up to me, and while sometimes it is kind of like hard to get through the conversation with them, it still challenges me. And a lot of times I learned about a guy that's like, I told him that I was learning how to do yo-yo tricks through watching YouTube, and he was telling me he was like basically disassembling some old truck of his and putting it back together same exact way, watching some YouTube videos and stuff like that. And I was just like, that's kind of cool, but at the same time you get those weird people that walk up and I don't know, it's a challenge to get through the conversation sort of thing.
Well, it seems like right around the time you were getting into yo-yoing, you were like on the Reddit forums, as Lime G Ninja, and the way we met was you had posted maybe one of your first, threads.
Yeah, it was literally my first post ever. It was like inspiration from a kid, actually. I was like, well, I was already kind of lurking on the Reddit forums, and and he just kind of like, he really liked the yo-yo, and I was like, all right, I really need to figure out a way to get a bulk amount of yo-yos, and so that's literally what led to me posting there, making an account in the first place.
Yeah. So you posted something along the lines of like, hey, how can I get involved with a company or something to see if they can donate yo-yos for kids? And like you said, you were new to the forum, and I responded right away because I happened to have a box of yo-yos specifically to donate to kids, and I was looking for the right thing. So I was like really grateful. I was like, oh, thank God, I can finally get rid of this box, right? But I remember you being like, I sent like within a minute or a couple minutes or whatever, you like post And then there was a reply saying, yeah, I gotcha. And you were like, no, this is the scammer. Like, this doesn't
Yeah,
make
no,
sense.
I was very, very worried. It was kind of one of those things like, this can't be happening.
Yeah, this doesn't happen. People don't just. But I'm so glad that you posted on Reddit and did that, and I was really more than happy to send you the yo-yos, which I think are actually great for the kids you're doing, the the responsive yo-megas and stuff like that. And since then, how many yo-yos? How many kids are you kind of handling that you've given yo-yos to?
So I think there was like a total of like 18 yo-yos that I got sent from you. And I want to say only one of them kind of like was busted right out the box. So I think there was a total of 17 yo-yos that have actually gone out since, I think that was like around October.
Yeah.
And so, I guess like, I don't know, and this is kind of like, what is it? I was asking my wife, like, what would you want to hear if she were listening to this podcast? And she mentioned like, how do you kind of do it, sort of thing. And so the way that I would actually kind of get the kids ending up with the yo-yos is that I have my shelf filled with just a bunch of fun stuff for kids to kind of like come in, feel comfortable with, and a lot of times like it's a lot of challenging stuff too. I have what is it, like the stack cups, like the ones that you kind of do fast. What is it? There's a bunch of board games, obviously puzzles. I think mind bender type puzzles. What is it? But basically, is like some of the kids will gravitate towards the yo-yos, and so the ones that get towards it, I kind of show them how to do it, and a lot of times you'll kind of notice whether or not they're willing to kind of put forth the effort and stuff like that. And so eventually, some of them get really good at throwing sleepers, and they're looking for the next trick, and they're like always even wanting to bring the yo-yo home with them, sort of thing. Because I don't give away the yo-yo in my office, obviously. I'd end up with nothing if I gave away that stuff every time a kid asked for it. But basically, is a lot of times they get to a point where they're looking like they're doing really well with their progress in therapy and stuff like that. And so I kind of challenge them. I say, hey, look, if you can kind of show me that you can continue without having these outbursts in class or something like that, I will reward you with a yo-yo, come up to this point. And so and that's what kind of led to the moments where, the days where they actually got their yo-yos, it was kind of, I don't know if you noticed the letters, I don't know, they seem kind of like they might have been rushed and stuff like that, the ones that we sent to you.
Yeah.
But a lot of the kids, they didn't even want to write the letter in the first place, but it was kind of cool to see them be like, no, I feel like I need to write this letter to them, sort of thing. And I was just like, okay, yeah. And these are the types of kids that don't like to write their sentences that they have to end up having to do if they're like bad at school and stuff like that. And so it's kind of amazing that some of them sat down and some of them struggle with actually spelling and stuff like that too. And so it's kind of one of those things where, I don't know, it was kind of like the nice build up to that point where they kind of make a big progress in their their improvement for themselves and stuff like that, and they get to have a yo-yo at the end, and hopefully they continue on with that. I hope like later on in their lives, if they find themselves in trouble or something like that, they can be like, you know what, I can like get through this moment by playing with a yo-yo or something like that. So
well, that's super cool. And when we were first talking, you mentioned letters, and I was like, no, I'm fine without letters, because I remember being forced to write letters, and I was really worried. I just wanted these kids to, I thought what you were doing was really cool, and I just wanted them to just enjoy it. But the letters I got were really sweet. And as far as spelling errors, they're sending a letter to a dyslexic, 42-year-old yo-yo pro. So I'm not too picky there. But just checking out a few of them. We have permission to share these. There's no personal information on them.
No.
And so one of the top ones I had here is, thank you, Doc Pop, for the yo-yo. One thing I'm encouraged to do is start a YouTube channel where I could teach kids how to yo-yo. And that was like the first one I opened, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. I need these letters. I didn't think I would actually, I didn't want to force the kids to write them, and I was worried that it would just be like, thanks. But that was like super cute. Although I don't want the competition, so don't. If my channel's still going, kid, just sponsor my Patreon. And let's see. Let's just take another. Lots of great drawings and crayons, which was super cool. There's this one outline of a kid with a small head and big feet yo-yoing. It almost looks like one of those drawings at a crime scene. The chalk outline, which is exactly. I have to say that's how I want to die. It's just like yo-yo on the ground. If this was my crime scene, I would be so happy. Thank you. Thank you for doing this with the kids, and thanks to to the kids. I keep trying to think of like what else I could do. Once I got these letters, I was like, man, this is just so cool what you're doing. And if you need any more help with anything, or if any of them need anything, you feel free to reach out to me, and reach out on the community again on Reddit, because we're okay.
And thank you so much, because that was one of those things where it was kind of a good test, because it was something I've never done before, and so I feel like I built up a good process on how to do it now, and so it's kind of I don't know, and I appreciate your just kind of blind, like, hey, look, there's this random guy on the internet looking for some yo-yos, I'll give them to him and just hope for the best. So I appreciate your trust in me and stuff like that too.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Well, Nate, it's great to finally get a chance to talk to you, and thanks again for taking the time to do this interview and for what you're doing.
Yes, thank you.
And to anybody watching, just a reminder, Popcast is a monthly-ish, it's sometimes twice a month or whatever, crowd-sponsored yo-yo channel. So be sure to smash your keyboard and like someone, like Nathan. That's cool. And you can also help support the show on patreon.com/DocPop. My sponsors there's Greg Knowles, Jeff Atwood, and about 40 other people that help make this show possible. And I really appreciate that. So, if you like what we're doing, help support. And keep your eye out for Lime G Nunja. And, maybe in 5 years, we'll see a world champion come out of his territory.
And I'm excited about your new yo-yo too, man.
The Weekender. Okay, thanks, man.
All right. Bye, man.